The courtroom was colder than I remembered. Not the kind of cold you feel on your skin, but the one that seeps under it, quiet, deliberate, like it belongs there. My father sat 2 rows ahead, his posture rigid, his jaw tight. My mother dabbed at invisible tears, while my sister Claire stared at the floor, hands folded neatly, a picture of remorse she didn't own. When the judge read the verdict, I didn't move. Fraud, forgery, misappropriation of estate funds. The words echoed through the oak-paneled chamber, like the tolling of a bell that had waited a long time to ring. Claire turned to me then, her eyes wide and glassy, not with guilt, but disbelief. As if she couldn't comprehend that the world she'd built on lies had finally collapsed. My father whispered something to her, but his voice trembled. My mother wouldn't look up at all. When the bailiff took Claire's wrist to cuff her, I stood, buttoned my jacket, and met my father's eyes for the first time in a year. "You'll regret this greatly," I said quietly. He didn't answer. He didn't have to. I saw it, the first flicker of fear. They weren't always like this. Or maybe they were, and I was too blind to see. Growing up, our house was the kind that made neighbors jealous. A white-columned estate with roses that bloomed on command and laughter that echoed through the hallways. My mother loved to host parties' summer soirees, where crystal glasses chimed and polite compliments floated like perfume. My father, the businessman, the name everyone wanted to be seen beside. And Claire, my sister, the prodigy who broke rules and somehow made it look like art. Then there was me, the quiet one, the dutiful one, the invisible one. I was the one who stayed home when the others went out, who handled the little things, my grandfather's errands, his medical bills, the paperwork no one else had patience for. He used to say I reminded him of himself, steady, careful, deliberate. He taught me how to read contracts, how to understand numbers, and how to tell when someone was lying. He called it the art of noticing. When he passed, I noticed everything. The silence, the distance, the way my family stopped meeting my eyes at the funeral. The lawyer's office smelled of cedar and expensive ink. My grandfather's will sat on the table, sealed and untouched. His attorney, a thin, sharp man with kind eyes, read the document in a steady voice. To my grandson, Andrew Hale, I leave the Hale estate, its assets, and holdings in trust for his sole discretion. My mother blinked. My father's jaw twitched. Claire's perfect smile faltered for the first time in years. It wasn't greed that filled the room. It was disbelief. And then rage. 3 days later, the lawyer was fired. A week after that, a new addendum appeared, handwritten, dated the night before my grandfather's stroke. It left everything to Claire. I didn't buy it for a second. The handwriting was shaky, but not his. The tone was wrong. The phrasing was too modern, too rehearsed. My grandfather didn't say estate management optimization. He said responsibility. When I confronted my parents, my father laughed in my face. "You don't deserve it, Andrew. You'll be fine on your own." It wasn't the words that broke something inside me. It was the way he said them, like I was nothing more than a footnote in their story. That night, I packed my duffel. My mother blocked the doorway. My father grabbed the bag. When I didn't let go, he grabbed my hair and dragged me across the marble floor like I was dirt beneath his shoes. I didn't fight back. I just looked at him and said, "You'll regret this greatly." Then I walked out bruised, humiliated but free. For the first few months, I disappeared. No calls, no messages, no trace. They thought I'd given up. That was their mistake. I started small. The lawyer who drafted the forged document had a record gambling debts, suspended license, unpaid taxes. I found his bar tab, his phone records, even the security footage from the night he met Claire. Piece by piece, I built a map of their betrayal. But anger wasn't enough. I needed proof. Proof that would stand when the lies crumbled. And I had help. My grandfather once told me, "Never burn a bridge. You'll need one to cross back someday." He was right. I reached out to one of his old friends, a forensic accountant named Evelyn Brooks. She didn't ask why. She just said, "Send me everything." Within weeks, she found it. A series of suspicious transfers, assets moved from the Hale Trust into shell accounts tied to Claire's new consulting business, clean on paper, dirty underneath. While they flaunted their new life cars, parties, the penthouse, I built a case, one email at a time. 9 months later, I was ready. I didn't want revenge. I wanted justice, and I wanted them to watch it happen, slowly. Every lie leaves a fingerprint. I learned that while watching my mother at the breakfast table one morning years ago, smiling too easily as she said, "Your father's just busy, sweetheart." Now she was busy too, signing false documents, moving money she thought no one could trace. But I traced it. All of it. Each transfer was deliberate, small enough to avoid attention, but not small enough to disappear. They called it inheritance redistribution. The forensic team called it what it was, fraud. Still, I didn't move yet. Not until I had everything. Evelyn warned me, "They'll fight dirty, Andrew. People like them always do." I smiled. Good, I was raised by them. When Claire's luxury car dealership suddenly appeared under her name, I let it be. When my father's business reported a sudden influx of consulting revenue, I waited. The key wasn't catching them, it was letting them dig the hole deep enough to bury themselves. 9 months to the day since they dragged me out, I stood in front of the Hale mansion again. The roses had wilted, the white columns were cracked. Time had finally done to the house what my family had done to itself, rotted it from the inside out. Through the gate, I could see the window to my old room. The curtains were still drawn the way I left them. I almost smiled. Inside, somewhere, they were still pretending everything was fine. My sister still posting her fake perfection online, my parents still attending fundraisers, shaking hands with people who whispered behind their backs. That night, I filed everything. The emails, bank statements, footage, witness statements, hundreds of pages of quiet destruction. The next morning, the summons went out. 3 counts of fraud, 2 of forgery, 1 for the illegal transfer of estate assets. Their empire began to crumble exactly the way I planned, quietly. They didn't see me at first. I walked into the courthouse with Evelyn beside me. My father was already inside, arguing with their lawyer. My mother sat pale and trembling, her pearls clutched too tightly. Claire tried to smile, but her mascara was already smudged. When I took my seat, she turned. "Andrew, you can't be serious. We're family." "Were," I said. Their lawyer tried to discredit me, said I was bitter, said I forged the real will, said I manipulated my dying grandfather. The courtroom murmured, but I didn't flinch. I waited until the evidence came out, every file, every timestamp, every forged signature. The judge read silently for a long moment, then looked up. "Mr. Hale, you've provided extraordinary proof." My father's hand clenched the table. My mother's face drained of color. Claire looked small, truly small, for the first time in her life. The bailiff took her hand. The cuffs clicked. My father whispered, "You think this makes you better than us?" I leaned close enough that only he could hear. "No," I said. "It makes me free." The Hale estate went up for auction 6 months later. I bought it under a different name. When I walked through the empty halls, it didn't feel like victory. It felt like silence, the kind that lingers after a scream. The marble floors were still polished, but cold. My father's study still smelled faintly of cigar smoke. In the corner of the living room, I found a photo. Me and Claire as kids, smiling, before greed took over, before love turned conditional. I didn't burn it. I left it on the mantel, face down. Let the ghosts remember what they lost. Each week, my father drove by. Never stopped long, just enough to stare. I watched him through the cameras I'd installed. He looked smaller now, weaker, like a man who'd built his whole life on sand and finally realized the tide had come. 3 weeks after the trial, a letter arrived. No return address, no handwriting I recognized. Just my name, Andrew Hale, written in soft graphite, the kind my grandfather used when drafting blueprints for the house. Inside was a single page, yellowed at the edges. Forgive them if you can. If you can't, forgive yourself for not being able to. No signature, no clue who sent it. But I knew. Somehow I knew it was him. I sat there in my apartment, smaller than the Hale dining room, quieter than any memory I had, reading that line over and over. For the first time in years, I didn't feel angry. I just felt tired. Forgiveness wasn't justice. It wasn't even closure. It was surrender, not to them, but to the part of myself that couldn't stop fighting. A year passed before I saw Claire again. She found me at the marina in Boston, where I spent weekends pretending I knew how to sail. The wind carried her voice before I turned. Andrew! She looked older. Maybe it was the light. Maybe it was the truth finally catching up to her. I wanted to say thank you, she said, for stopping me before I became them. I studied her for a long moment. You're not them, I said quietly. Not yet. Don't be. She smiled. The first genuine smile I'd seen from her since we were children. You always were the better one. No, I said. I was just the one who stayed. Before she left, she handed me a folded note. Mom wrote this in prison, said it was for you. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. Some doors are meant to stay closed. 2 years later, I returned to the Hale estate one last time. The house was quiet, sunlight bleeding through dust-covered windows. I walked through each room, the hallways, the study, the staircase I once slid down on winter mornings. In the living room, I found the old family portrait. I turned it around. For the first time, I noticed something I'd never seen before. In the corner, hidden beneath years of polish and frame varnish, a signature. My grandfather's handwriting. Family isn't who keeps your name, it's who keeps your promise. I didn't cry. I didn't need to. The house that once held our secrets now held my peace. As I walked out, I locked the door behind me, not to keep anyone out, but to finally let myself go. They called it poetic justice in the papers. The son who prosecuted his own blood. They loved the drama, the symmetry, the irony. But what they missed was the quiet truth. Justice isn't loud. It doesn't come with applause or headlines. It's silent, like forgiveness whispered too late, or love that never got the chance to speak. I sold the Hale estate to a charity that turned it into a shelter for children without families. On opening day, a little boy ran up to me, hair wild, eyes bright, and said, "Is this your house, mister?" I smiled. "It used to be," I said. "Now it's yours." As he ran off, the sunlight hit the old oak tree in the yard, the one my grandfather planted the day I was born. For the first time, I realized something simple but absolute. You don't escape your past by destroying it. You escape it by turning it into something better. And sometimes, that's all the justice the world needs,